I want to start by saying that I am not someone who believes in things he cannot explain. I never have been. I grew up in a house where my father said, if you can't touch it, measure it, or prove it, it doesn't exist. That stuck with me. I carried it into adulthood the way you carry certain things without realizing you're carrying them. It became the lens I used to look at everything. I'm telling you this because what I'm about to describe has no explanation that satisfies that lens. And I've tried. For almost 2 years now, I have tried. My grandfather passed away in October of 2021. He was 79. It wasn't sudden. He had been sick for a while, and we had time to prepare, which I think is supposed to make it easier. It didn't. He was the kind of man whose absence you feel in a specific way. Not like a hole, but like a weight. Like the air got heavier after he left. He lived alone in the same house for 44 years. Small place, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that always smelled like coffee, and something else I could never name. He had lived there since before my mother was born. Every surface had something on it. Every drawer had something in it. He was not a hoarder exactly, but he was a keeper. He kept everything. When he died, the job of going through his house fell to me. Not because I was the oldest. I wasn't. But my mother couldn't do it emotionally. My uncle lived across the country, and my cousin had just had a baby. I was the one with the time, and I was the one who volunteered. I told myself it was the right thing to do. I think part of me also just wanted to be in his space one more time before it was gone. I took 2 weeks off work and drove down in early November. The house was in a small town in rural Pennsylvania. Population maybe 3,000. The kind of place where everyone knows the name of everyone else's dog. My grandfather had been a fixture there for decades. People stopped me at the gas station to tell me they were sorry, and I could tell they meant it. The house felt different, empty. I had been there hundreds of times growing up, but always when he was in it. Without him, it was like a stage set. Everything in place but the main character gone. His reading chair still had the indent of him in it. There was a half-finished crossword on the side table, a pen resting in the crease of the newspaper, like he had just stepped away. I didn't touch those things for the first 2 days. I started with the practical stuff. Kitchen, bathroom, clothes. Things that were easy to sort because they had no memory attached to them. I filled bags and boxes and stacked them by the door. I worked slowly because I wasn't in a rush, and because the house deserved that. On the 3rd day, I got to the back bedroom. My grandfather used the 2nd bedroom as a storage room. That's the only way to describe it. Floor to ceiling, wall to wall, boxes, bags, bins, and stacks of things accumulated over 44 years. Old furniture pushed to one side, a broken lamp, 3 or 4 rolled up rugs leaning against the wall, bags of clothes that probably hadn't been opened since the 90s, and photographs, not albums exactly. Some were in albums, but most were loose. Shoeboxes of them, envelopes of them, a few grocery bags, stuffed full of them. My grandfather had been an amateur photographer his whole life. Film camera, dark room in the basement when he was younger. He photographed everything. Family events, the town, landscapes, strangers sometimes. Just moments he wanted to keep. I decided the photographs were something I wanted to go through carefully. Not sort and donate, actually look at. I figured my mother and uncle might want some of them, and I didn't want to make that decision without looking first. I brought them all out to the living room and spread them across the floor in rough groups. By decade, roughly, I could tell from the quality and color of the prints. The oldest ones were black and white or early color, washed out and soft. The newer ones were sharper, more saturated. I started with the oldest and worked forward. Most of them were exactly what you'd expect. Family gatherings, Christmas mornings, birthday parties where everyone looked younger than I'd ever seen them. My mother as a teenager, which was strange to look at. My uncle with hair. My grandmother, who died before I was born, smiling in a backyard I didn't recognize. I went through probably 400 or 500 photographs over the course of that afternoon. And then I found the one. It was in a shoebox near the bottom of one of the piles. The box was rubber banded shut and had no label on it. When I opened it, the photographs inside were all from what looked like the same time period. Late 70s, early 80s based on the color. Family pictures mostly. A few of the town. I was flipping through them casually when I stopped. The photo was of my grandfather's backyard. I recognized it immediately. The same yard I had played in as a kid, though younger in the picture. The trees smaller, the fence a different color. My grandfather was standing near the back, facing the camera. He was maybe mid-30s in the photo. Behind him was the house. Behind the house was the tree line. And standing at the edge of the tree line, half in shadow, was a figure. I held the photo closer. It was a person, standing very still, facing the camera. Not my grandfather. He was in the foreground. This was someone else further back, at the edge of the property where the yard met the woods. They were partially obscured by shadow, and the image quality wasn't great, but it was clearly a human shape, standing, watching. I told myself it was probably a neighbor, someone cutting through the yard. A coincidence of timing. They happened to be there when my grandfather took the picture, or someone took a picture of him. I set it aside and kept going. 3 photographs later, I found another one. Different setting this time. What looked like a town street, daytime, people walking, a normal street scene. My grandfather wasn't in this one. It was just the street. But in the background, between 2 parked cars, was the same figure. Same build, same posture, same stillness in a frame full of movement. I put the 2 photos side by side. I want to be precise about what I mean when I say same figure. I don't mean same general shape. I mean the details that were visible. The way the person was standing, weight slightly forward, arms at their sides, head tilted just slightly down, were identical across both photographs. Like the same pose, like the same person, same stance, captured twice in 2 different locations. I kept going through the box. I found 3 more. A family birthday party. The figure in the background, through a window. Outside, looking in. A photograph of the front of my grandfather's house taken from the street. The figure visible in the side yard, half behind the corner of the building. A photograph of what looked like a church gathering. The figure standing at the back of the crowd, facing forward, while everyone else in the crowd was turned towards something to the left. 5 photographs, 5 different locations, 5 different occasions. The same figure in every single one. I sat on my grandfather's living room floor for a long time after that. I lined all 5 photographs up in a row and studied them. My first instinct was that I was seeing something that wasn't there. That I was pattern matching because my brain wanted to find connection. That's a real thing. I knew that. Grief does strange things to perception, and I had been alone in a dead man's house for 3 days. But the more I looked, the less I could convince myself of that. The figure was consistent in a way that coincidence doesn't produce. Same height relative to surroundings, same posture. And there was something else. Something I noticed on the 4th or 5th pass through the photographs. In every single photo, the figure was looking directly at the camera. Not at the scene, not at my grandfather. At the camera, at whoever was holding it. Which in most of these photographs was my grandfather himself. I didn't sleep well that night. I told myself I would look at the photographs again in the morning with fresh eyes, and they would make sense. I put them back in the shoebox, put the shoebox on the kitchen table, and went to bed in the room I always used when I visited. The small one at the front of the house, with the window that faced the street. I lay there for a long time, looking at the ceiling. At some point I fell asleep, because at some point I woke up. It was 3:14 according to my phone. I wasn't sure what woke me. The house was quiet. The street outside was quiet. I lay still for a moment, and then I heard it. A very faint sound from somewhere else in the house. Not a loud sound, not a bang or a crash. Just a soft, almost imperceptible creak. The kind old houses make constantly. I told myself that's what it was. An old house settling. I closed my eyes. The creak came again. And this time, it was followed by another one. Slightly different in pitch. Like weight shifting from one floorboard to an adjacent one. like footsteps. I sat up in bed. I want to be honest. My heart was going fast. I'm not someone who scares easily, but I was alone in a house in a town I didn't know well, and I had just spent the evening looking at photographs that had gotten under my skin in a way I couldn't fully rationalize. My nerves were already primed. I sat completely still and listened. Nothing for almost a full minute. Then, one more creak from the direction of the kitchen, where I had left the shoebox. I got up. I'm not entirely sure why. Looking back, staying in the room and calling the police would have been the smarter move. But in the moment, the sounds seemed small enough that my brain categorized them as something explainable rather than something threatening. I picked up my phone for the flashlight and walked slowly down the hall toward the kitchen. The kitchen was empty. The shoebox was on the table, exactly where I left it. I stood in the doorway for a moment, then walked to the back door and checked the lock. Locked. Checked the window above the sink. Closed and latched. Walked back through the living room and checked the front door. Locked. I went back to bed. In the morning, I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table and opened the shoebox again. I went through all 5 photographs one more time. And I noticed something I had missed the night before. In the birthday party photograph, the one where the figure was visible through the window, outside looking in, there was a child in the foreground of the image. A small girl, maybe 4 or 5 years old, in a party dress, holding a piece of cake. She was looking directly at the camera and smiling. I had registered her the night before, but I hadn't looked at her closely. This time, I did. I recognized her. It took me a moment. The photograph was old, and she was very young in it. But I recognized her. It was my mother, which meant I could now date this photograph with some precision. My mother was born in 1967. If she was 4 or 5 in this picture, it was taken around 1971 or 1972, which meant this photograph was 50 years old. I stared at the figure in the window. 50 years ago, standing outside my grandfather's house, looking in at a child's birthday party. I called my mother that afternoon. I didn't tell her about the figure right away. I asked her about the photographs generally, whether she remembered her father taking a lot of pictures, whether she knew who might have helped him or been around when he was shooting. She said yes, he always had a camera. She grew up with it. She said sometimes he'd have friends help him set up shots if he wanted to be in them himself. I asked if he ever mentioned anyone following him or being around who shouldn't have been. She went quiet for a second. Then she said, "Why are you asking that?" I told her about the photographs. She was quiet for longer this time. Then she said something that made the coffee in my stomach turn cold. She said, "Dad mentioned something once, when I was maybe 12 or 13. He said he thought someone had been in the backyard. He found the gate unlatched 2 or 3 mornings in a row. He assumed it was kids cutting through. But he said once he looked out the window at night and thought he saw someone standing at the tree line." She paused. He said the person didn't move, just stood there. He watched for almost 10 minutes, and they just stood there. Then he blinked, and they were gone. I went back through every box of photographs in that back bedroom over the next 3 days. All of them. I found the figure in 11 more photographs. 16 total. The earliest one I could date with any confidence was from 1968, 3 years after my grandfather moved into that house. The most recent one was from what I estimated to be the mid-90s, based on the print quality and the clothes visible on other people in the frame. Nearly 30 years of photographs, the same figure, the same posture, always at the edge, always looking at the camera, never getting older. I need to stop here and tell you what I mean by that last part, because that's the thing that broke my ability to explain any of this away. In the earliest photographs, the figure looked like an adult, medium height, average build. In the photographs from the 70s, the same. The 80s, the same. The mid-90s, the same. No aging. No change in height or build that I could detect. While everyone else in those photographs, my grandfather, my mother, my uncle, the family friends, visibly aged across the decades, the figure at the edge of every frame looked identical from the first photograph to the last. I'm not a person who believes in things he cannot explain, but I cannot explain this. I brought the 16 photographs home with me when I left Pennsylvania. I have shown them to 4 people: my wife, my mother, a friend who is a photographer, and a woman I found through a local historical society who specializes in identifying people in old photographs. My wife said it was unsettling, but that it could be coincidence. My mother said she didn't want to look at them again after the first time. My photographer friend said the consistency of the figure across different photographs taken in different locations was, in his words, statistically very hard to account for. The woman from the historical society looked at all 16 for almost an hour. She cross-referenced the backgrounds, the settings, the estimated dates. When she was done, she looked at me and said she couldn't identify the figure and had never seen anything like it in 30 years of this kind of work. Then she said something I think about almost every day. She said, "Whoever this is, they knew where your grandfather was going to be. Every single time." My grandfather lived in that house for 44 years. He died in October of 2021. 2 weeks after I came home from Pennsylvania, I was going through the photographs one more time at my kitchen table. I had them spread out in chronological order. I was looking at them with a magnifying glass, trying to find any detail I had missed. I got to the last photograph, the most recent one, mid-90s. I had looked at this one a dozen times. The figure at the back of a crowd, facing forward, while everyone else faced left. This time, with the magnifying glass, I looked at the figure more carefully than I had before, and I saw something on the figure's shirt that I had not noticed in any previous examination. A small rectangular shape on the chest, like a pin or a badge. I brought the magnifying glass closer. It was too small, and the image quality too poor to read with certainty. But it looked like a name tag. I don't know what that means. I don't know who this person is. I don't know why they appear in 16 photographs, spanning nearly 30 years of my grandfather's life. I don't know why they never aged. I don't know what the name tag said. I don't know if my grandfather knew they were there, or if he ever looked back at his own photographs and saw what I saw. I don't know if they're still out there. What I do know is this. After I got home from Pennsylvania, after I had been living with these photographs for about 3 weeks, I was at my own house one evening. It was late. My wife was already asleep. I was in the kitchen getting a glass of water, and I looked out the window into our backyard on instinct, the way you do when a movement catches your eye. There was nothing there. But the gate to our backyard was open. We had not opened it that day,